any kind of sense of anger among a large section of the population as a result of social injustice gets kind of redirected or diverted into, one thing that I was thinking of was that the popularity of violent movies and stuff, it's a way for people to kind of have a release in the sense of seeing the injustice that they sense in their own lives. They see it played out on movie screens, with the good guy always ending up beating the bad guy. The good guy might initially in the movie suffer some kind of injustice, and ultimately he seeks his revenge. And
well, the real proof of a model of some kind of like human behavior is to see that it's scalable across human experience, right? So, I mean, the question is you see a lot of people that they create, I guess, what you could call like an escape valve for their stuff, and that is the same in sort of like cultures of violence and cultures of sexual perversion and things like that they create situations that they can then work things out. That's just a natural thing. It doesn't work, The problem is it's like a crutch. It helps them walk, but it never actually cures the disease in them, which is the injustice and the abuse that they have received. And so that in the sort of sense is the validation of this model that's what's going on in people's minds.
Yeah, so I mean, if we talk about social injustice in the U.S., I mean, there's a lot of people in the U.S. on food stamps, which for people who don't know what that means,
it's hitting something like 50 million people now.
I forgot the point that I wanted to make. Can I make it real quick?
No, I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So what you were saying is whether or not they kind of know about this and they kind of control the situation and stuff like that. And I use sometimes this analogy of a person who tortures a dog. They tie him up to the tree and then torture him, and then maybe they bring someone over and let the dog attack them. I use that kind of as an example of how the psychopathic elite are treating the people of the world. But you have to remember that the beginning of that is a wherewithal in their minds to tie the dog up first. And that's what they do to the society. They tie us up like dogs and then poke and torture us. It's not just mind, and it's an intrinsic strategy in themselves. They want to protect themselves. So that's why they make these laws. They're trying to protect themselves so that they can then do what they want to do. They want to cause suffering. They want to do whatever it is that they want to do. Who knows? I mean, who knows in the end what goes on in the mind of a psychopath? Sometimes I really don't know or understand, why they do the things that they do. Only I know that they do them, but I don't think that it's like a massive conspiracy. I don't think that it's a massive conspiracy, against the people. I think that it's just a natural way of doing things. I mean, it's just consistent self-interest and consistent sadism and a mean spirit that causes them or gets them to do these things. They're just consistent in the way they do them, so it looks like a gigantic conspiracy. It looks like they're planning everything, but actually they're not. They're just evil, man.
Well, if you think about, it's good that we're talking about this now. The social injustice that is underpinning violence and crime, not just in the U.S. but across Western civilization.
Can I just interject there? I just want to give out the number just in case anybody else wants to call.
Yeah, let's do that.
The guest we should have done this before. The guest call-in number is from the U.S. It's 718-508-9499. If you want to, it's on the website and stuff. If you want to call internationally, you just put a 001 before that. So go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I think people feel powerless. Something like Sandy Hook happens, and they're just, what can we do? What are our options? And helped by the media, of course, it falls into, well, I can either arm myself or I can rely on the authorities to protect me. Mm-hmm. Most will take option B. Of course, some will take option A. But the feeling of powerlessness that they can't really do anything about it is, I think, is expressed in media. Mm-hmm. We're talking about movies, violent video games, where that enraging sense of injustice can be at least vicariously dealt with by feeling like you can identify with the guy in the movie who does get social justice at the end, Yeah, that's that is handed to Americans and people in the West in general in spades. They can have as much of that as they want, but you're never going to. The message coming through is forget about real social justice.
Yeah.
You can feel like you can get, and that feeling, I think part of that is the sense of security that comes with owning a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, social injustice leads to or feeling that that your life isn't what it could be. Really, when people are being subjected to some kind of injustice, broadly in society, where they don't feel they have, opportunities to improve themselves, to do what they want to do. The education system fails them. There's only crappy low-end jobs available and stuff. Ultimately, what that all conveys, or how that's felt by people, is essentially a sense of powerlessness.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can understand how people, particularly in very poor areas and stuff, would automatically say, well, the system's stacked against me. It's screwing me over, basically. I'm going to get a gun so that'll certainly, having a gun will help me to feel more powerful, and it'll also help me to get some stuff that otherwise is not available to me, that is being denied me,
Conspiracy or no, I think we can safely say that when gun control is being pushed, at least, maybe not literally, but it's being pushed in the sense that it's getting people revved up, because they know full well it's an emotional, hot-button topic. When it's being talked about like that, they're really targeting the working class people, because they're the ones who are... They're the ones who will be arming themselves to protect themselves, because they know that they can't rely on the police and the justice system to protect them.
Yeah, well, that also creates, for the middle class, that the police do kind of protect. In more wealthy kind of suburbs and stuff, the police are always there, and they're, as soon as you call 911, 5 minutes later they're there.
Yeah, because you're white, rich, and middle class.
Yeah, those people get the security. But their sense of insecurity and their sense of needing the authorities to provide security for them is enhanced by this kind of underclass who are driven to be the criminals, and to some extent prey on the middle class, and the middle class then throws the middle class into the arms of government. And it keeps it all within, amongst the people. We keep saying it's kind of divide and conquer. It keeps it within the problem, defined as being within society itself, while we, your overlords, sit in our ivory towers and are only too willing to enact laws or whatever is necessary to protect you, the people. And they keep the debate at that level and keep people distracted, keep people fighting among themselves, when the ultimate cause of all social ills today in the world, and pretty much in the world and in every country, is corrupt government and the corrupt and unjust laws that they pass that basically seek to, one extent or another, screw over the people.
Well, look at the mechanism of corruption, right? Because when you say a corrupt government, it's like, what do you mean? And I saw this Piers Morgan, he's talking to Jesse Ventura, and I love Jesse Ventura. I was a fan when he was a wrestler. I always have much respect for the man, and he does kind of...
I like Jesse too.
I mean, I just like him. He's the type of guy that you just want to hang out with. He reminds me of a lot of the buddies I used to have back in the day. The older guys were kind of like mentoring me when I was in college. They were doing their re-education, and he's talking to Piers Morgan. And Piers, I think, asked him some sort of question along the lines of, what's the problem? And the problem is all the backsheesh, all the backroom dealing, all the bribery that's going on in government. It's money. It's the corruption of money. It's the people they're being bought off against their own people by rapacious corporations, special interest lobbies, and all this different type of stuff, by the military-industrial complex or whatever you want to call it. I mean, just people who want to make money. It's greed, And I'm one of those types of people that having been a person that has in my life and in my youth committed plenty of sins, I can forgive. I don't believe that. All of them. I can forgive almost every sin. I can forgive pride. I can forgive wrath, even if it's against me. I can forgive gluttony, sloth. I can forgive lust. But the one sin I cannot forgive is greed, because greed is one of all of those sins are sins against yourself. All right. If you go on the path of lust, it's a sin against yourself. If you go on the path of gluttony, it's a sin against yourself. You're hurting yourself. Pride, you're hurting yourself. Or you're cutting off other people. All right. Greed as far as I know, it's the only sin, or maybe just one of the few sins, because the only other one is like envy, I think. Anyway, I got them most. But greed is the one that takes from others in order for it to be greed. It takes from others and restricts them from possessing that which you possess. Mm-hmm. And so greed is a really terrible sin. And if you look back into history, like with Lycurgus and Sparta, and a lot of people saw like 300 and this is Sparta, and kicking some ass. I really like that movie. But the Spartan way, what Lycurgus did, who was the sort of the creator of what we know of as Sparta and now in these days, was the first thing he did was to get rid of wealth. He got rid of all gold and silver, and he made all of the coins brittle iron or something, or brittle metal that couldn't even be resold to be smelted into weapons because they quenched it in vinegar. So this is the script that you use to do your business. And the next thing he did, of course, is he instituted lots of educational reforms, mostly in the form of a kind of all the men were part of a militia, kind of a military education system. Maybe I'm not suggesting that for now, but I'm saying that he saw even at that time that the number one corruptor was wealth. And for 500 years, some people, it's different quotes of how long they lasted, Sparta remained like one of the military power in the Hellenistic world. It was respected by most people, certainly militarily. If they came into your city-state and said, you guys need to stop fighting or we're going to come in, everyone said, whoa, shit, okay, no, Sparta, don't come and attack us. And what ended up bringing Sparta down, what brought them down was that they forgot about that rule that he had put in. They said, oh, we don't need that law anymore. And they reintroduced the concept of wealth. They started to allow people to have gold and silver and to trade with gold and silver, and tank. Wealth is a very corrupting influence, especially in government, which is why even in the Constitution it says that senators are not allowed to take bribes. Bribery is a very serious problem. And Jesse Ventura was talking about, when he was talking about like the Democrats and the Republican kind of thing, that the real problem in government, the source of the corruption, even if you want to talk about, there's all these stories of them participating in pedophile rings, there's all these other kind of stories of the sex scandals and stuff like that. The real problem in politics is money. The thing is that campaign contributions, they call them, it's just changing the words, it's a bribe. Mm-hmm. That's what a campaign contribution is.
Lobbying.
Lobbyist is exactly the same,
Yeah.
It's completely stacked against the average, average citizen. And what's pretty amazing is that they've been able to enrich themselves so much and still maintain some semblance of social cohesion and not have people.
Can I make one thing? I remember reading a story about Donald Rumsfeld.
Oh, not him.
Now, this is a man that is in public office in the United States of America, where lots of people are really dirt-ass poor. And this man, through some company that he was part of the board of, made a deal that would benefit him to the tune of like $35 million. There are people in America who will never in their entire life make that much money. That's an insulting sum of money for someone in office to be receiving. It's just, and this is the kind of money we're talking about. I just wanted to point that out, that when you're saying they're making money, it's like they're not making $500,000, they're not making $1 million, they're making tens of millions of dollars on these backroom deals.
And it's not just the politicians, obviously. It's the it's the corporate heads as well. Right. I mean, there's corporate CEOs who are making literally 1,000 times the amount of money for supposedly the same amount of time that they put in a working week, 1,000 times the salary of the guy working on the shop floor down below them. I mean, that, by any stretch of the imagination, is obscene.
It's obscene. It's obscene wealth.
And what's amazing is that they've been able to do that, get away with it, and like I said, maintain the integrity of society and keep people from revolting against such revolting practices. And here's an example. There's an example. This is a pretty relevant one from just a few days ago when Obama was inaugurated. It was some kind of a post or pre-inaugural commentary by some senator.
The senator gave a speech prior to the actual swearing in at the inauguration.
Yeah. And it was basically about the transition of power. Just have a listen to what he says.
Okay.